Hi, Bill.
Hey, Paul. First and last in
Gee,
the alphabet. Frank Unger is coming in right now. There's Frank.
hi, Frank.
He's connecting to his audio. And Jim Blanchard. Hey, Frank, have you turned your volume on?
Have I?
Yes, you
I can hear
have.
you quite clearly.
Okay. And coming in is Bill Black. Well, at least his living room is there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Bill.
And Dick Galant. The whole class of 65 is here.
Well,
I think we have about 20 people signed up for tonight.
That's a good crowd.
Yeah, we'll see how many of them actually make it.
Richard, when I was thinking about the last meeting, and people were talking about kind of one of the strengths that came out of the seminary was a strong feeling of independence. What was, I thought, interesting was that kind of in today's modern world, everybody works in teams. And in the seminary, nobody worked together kind of on any projects. It was all individual work, as I remember.
Okay, we got Frank Marfia's in with us now, and Jerry Willing, Tom Dalton, Al Wahmhoff is entering the scene. There he is. One thing the seminary taught us was being prompt.
Ding.
The bell will ring shortly.
It will ring late.
No, I was wondering the other day whether, I lost track of who the guy's, Mitch, whether he actually had to get up early and control those bells to get everybody going, or whether that was any kind of timer at the time. There's Bill Gebhard coming in.
Well, you can ask him.
And we've got Jim. Which Jim is this one going to be? It's the Jim with a bald head. Okay, we got 12 in. How are things out in Iowa, Al?
Nice and warm today.
Ah, that's what we're getting in Michigan tomorrow.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was almost too hot outside. We opened the windows and said, wait a minute, maybe better close them back up. I'll be in Michigan, Southwest Michigan tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Weren't you and Frank gonna get together?
We haven't,
No.
we haven't figured out when and where.
Right, yeah. We
We
will
talked
do it though, right?
Wait,
Kate?
I'm still in favor of it, Al. I'm still in
Okay.
favor.
Uh-huh. Hey, you're looking good, man.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
I met with a co-worker for breakfast, first time about a week ago. We both have been vaccinated now 3 weeks and our second vaccine, and had a good time. It was in an outdoor restaurant it was in a restaurant with a big tent on the outside. And so there were hardly anybody there for breakfast. Very safe.
I haven't been to any restaurants except for carry-out stuff.
Yeah, that was, for me, the first time in 15 months or 14 months.
Yeah, back in the summer, before things got really bad around Michigan, some friends and I would get together every now and then at a couple places around town.
Is it getting bad again in the Detroit area?
Michigan has a pretty high
Mhm.
rate again right now, and Oakland County, where I live, it has a really high rate too. So I don't know.
We're the worst in the country.
Experiencing the highest rate of positivity now ever. We're up at 17% for Michigan anyway.
Wisconsin is spiking too. Illinois is also going in the wrong direction.
And we got Stas coming in there.
Stanley. The sailor.
All right, hey, Galant.
He's walking in.
I'm curious, are you guys able to see everybody in the same screen right now?
No, we have to scroll, I think. I do.
Well, I mean, but
Yeah.
it's a group shot. That's what I was getting at.
I can see
Mhm.
about 6 people.
Yeah, I can see 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
I'm using a laptop, and if you, up in the upper right-hand corner, there are view selections. And so I'm in what's called gallery view.
Mhm.
Try that.
That's-
Oh, yeah, you're right. More people are visible in gallery view.
Yeah, I just clicked on gallery. It works.
Oh,
On an iPad, I get about 9 people.
Mm-hmm. I'm able to see all 13 right now.
Yeah, me too.
likewise.
Yep.
No,
Stash moving around? Is he walking?
well, I was
He's on
cleaning
the
my
boat.
son, had to go to CVS, and I
Ah.
had to go, okay, I'm here, guys. They're packing to leave,
He's giving us a tour of his ceiling.
and I just cleaned his windows because of the salt. So,
Ceiling fan.
Gosh, are you on the ocean the way you're moving around there? I don't know. You gonna get.
I am, I'm on the golf. All right, and I got still all the kids here, so I can't use that bedroom like I did last time. So I'm in a different bedroom. Okay. Is anybody talking?
No,
That's
Okay,
That's-
good.
We're waiting for Bill to,
oh
Yeah.
well, we got 13. Shall we just launch in and see who else joins us?
sure.
Oh, that's good.
All right, well, why don't we start as usual with introductions, so for the benefit of those who don't know the rest of us in here. I think I know just about everybody, but who knows? Paul, why don't you lead off and give us your 15-second intro?
Paul Banner, class of 66. I don't really have much to add beyond that.
What's your, maybe everybody could give us a quick update of what's going on vaccine wise around them and
My wife and I both completed both vaccines, 3 weeks ago now, something like that. I was running a week ahead of her. Kalamazoo County's been running clinics at the Fairgrounds Expo Center. They have a pretty slick operation out there.
all right, how about Jim Blanchard?
I am the outlier of the group. I attended St. Joe's from 1967. I graduated high school in 71 and then did 2 years at Christopher House and 1 year at St. Mary's Seminary in Houston. I live in Grand Rapids. I've been vaccinated, both Pfizer vaccines. My wife is getting her second vaccine this week. Grand Rapids has been doing reasonably well. They're using the DeVos Center and they did, I think, 12,000 in 1 day.
Jim, while I got you there, I had a note sent to me through the website from somebody who said their dad had attended a seminary in Michigan between 68 and 70, and his name was David Ballantyne. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
He was in my class,
Who said that?
Bill Block.
Oh, Bill Black. Oh, okay. Okay.
Bill Valentine.
Now this was a David Ballantyne.
I don't recall anyone, but as all of you know, sometimes people are there for short periods of time, and so he may have been there and left before I got to know him.
Yeah. Now the note said he was from Flint, so I didn't know whether people from Flint would be going to Saginaw or Sacred Heart in
There were
Detroit.
people Flint at St. Joe's in my era.
Say again, please.
There were people from Flint diocese when I was there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, let's go on to Bill Black.
I live in Raleigh right now and have for the last 9 years. Both my wife and I have gotten our shots. I was in the Pfizer study and got the placebo. And when they got the thing approved, they let me know and they paid me to get another shot. But we're all vaccinated and had guests over for the first time this last week. Another couple that also had been vaccinated.
Jonathan?
Yeah.
I don't need to record this. No. Well, it says record.
Sounds probably.
I'm
How
recording.
can I get more faces?
He's hearing you, Dad.
How can I get more faces?
Well, you got to put yourself on.
All right. How about on to Dick Galant? Is Dick
Good evening,
here? Oh, there he
everybody.
is.
Good
Right.
evening, everyone, and happy Easter. Coming from you from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Peter, I'm sorry Michigan lost the other day, but that's the way it goes. You asked last time, I remember. I did get the second shot on the last day of March, and my wife got hers on that Friday. So I got the Moderna shot. I got mine in Ann Arbor. She got hers in Pontiac. It was through the Trinity Health IHA. Just an interesting note, Frank, you might be interested in this. I had a nephew that lives in Chicago, right by the river. And he got his second shot in Peoria. So if it works in Peoria, it's going to work anywhere, I guess.
Mhm.
I have a friend whose children drove all the way to Springfield to get their shots.
My gosh, that's a long drive.
That's a long
Yeah.
drive from Chicago.
Well, we have good friends who went to Tuscaloosa to get their shots.
Wow.
But I still think Bill Gebhard's got the crown. I mean, he flew from Florida to Michigan to get his shot. So go, Bill. As far as the status, even with I guess they're giving shots at Michigan Stadium. I knew they were earlier. They were very hard to get when they kind of started releasing them. And the biggest news that we get is the number of students at the university and athletes, and they're trying to curb all that. Ann Arbor, people in Ann Arbor actually are going to Detroit to get their shots. I know my son got it downtown in Lafayette Park, and he's scheduled to get the second one. So the only comment I have was surprising to me is how short the shot was. I mean, it was almost like they punched him or punched me, and that was it. The other thing, interestingly, Jim Blanchard, you might be interested in Grand Rapids. I was in 5th grade, and I was a polio pioneer. And at that time, I don't know if any of you were, but
Yes.
you're behind me.
I was also.
Okay. And, that was quite a deal. And the interesting thing, I think, and I'll stop here, a story, but my mother and aunt, my mother, obviously we live in Grand Rapids, and she lived in Lowell, which is about 15 miles from Grand Rapids. And they were talking on the phone, and my mother was telling her that I was getting this shot. And I actually got a placebo, interestingly, but she was telling her about the polio shot. And because of that, she got her sons, who are about my age, a little bit younger, one of them, but they both got their shots. It turned out my younger cousin of those two, he contracted polio after going to the fair in Lowell. And it turned out that because he got the shot, he did not have the effects of polio, simply on a phone call through that. So I'll leave you with there. Good to see you all, by the way.
Pete, you're next. We're just kind of introducing ourselves, and everybody's kind of updating on what the status of the vaccines are with them. And also, you are one of the people that indicated you had a topic for discussion tonight. So go ahead, Pete.
Okay, I'm Pete. I live in Byron Center, and I've had both of my vaccinations.
Pete, I think everything kind of froze up on you. Why don't we go on to Bill Gebhard while we're waiting for Pete to come back on?
Fair enough. Yeah, I've had my shots, and I'm actually happy to report that my entire family has had at least one of their shots, including my 20-year-old grandson. He got his first shot on Saturday. And it's a good feeling to know that they're all moving in the right direction there.
Yeah.
Binary to me sounds like.
Yeah.
Back to Pete for a second there. You got cut out there.
Yeah, I lost everybody. I just saw that article in the New Yorker magazine and about women in the church, and maybe the Vatican is loosening up a little bit. I certainly support that. I think they should be ordained. So there's some nun or something was appointed to some commission on bishops. I don't know if she's going to help select bishops or what, but that was some big breakthrough or something. So it was not, we don't have to talk about that. That's not a big topic, frankly, but.
Well, I think we should, to be honest with you, and, we can talk about this a little later, but I think we need to.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly support it, and I think it's about time that we had more than just male clerics, dominating the church. So that's my position.
All right, over to Jim Hammond.
Hi, everyone. Happy Easter. Yeah.
You.
I'm still here in Virginia. We are fully vaccinated. Did one little outing since being fully vaccinated, met with one of my wife's brothers. My wife is one of 14 children, so there are probably a lot of meetings yet to come. But so far, the getting registered for a vaccine's been a nightmare. Actually, going to the site to get a vaccine has been very well organized. And so it's moving along, and hopefully we'll get better. That's it for now.
Okay, I think next on the list is Frank Marfia.
Well,
from
hello, everyone.
Trimville.
Hello, happy Easter. My wife and I have both been fully vaccinated. I had the Pfizer, she had the Moderna. Again, we had a problem getting into the various websites to get registered, but I had some of my adult children looking for us. They were working from home, so they had parts of the day that they could quickly go in and check on us, and they found my wife's vaccine spot. But anyway, we're both fully vaccinated. I had breakfast with a friend about a week ago for the first time dining out in about a year. And then this Easter Sunday, we drove to Indianapolis. I have a married daughter and grandson down there, and we hadn't seen them in 2 years. And so that was a nice visit. They've both been vaccinated. All my adult children and their spouses have had at least one vaccine. I have 4 children. Their spouses have each had, some of them have had 2 vaccines. My 4 grandchildren are too small, too young. The oldest is 11, so that they haven't gotten down to that age yet. But it's looking better. Illinois is still only about, I think, 22% fully vaccinated. It's got a long way to go. So that's it for us. We're pleased to have the vaccine. We're feeling a little safer, although we're still wearing masks everywhere. That's it for me.
Okay, on to Stas.
Yeah, Stas Popowich, class of 66. My wife and I both had both vaccines by the end of January.
Oh, wow, early.
We still, we went to Pontiac, so all the way across town. Both kids and their spouses have had it. My son's in Chicago, teachers, and they haven't had any problems. Daughter works in a mental health kind of thing. She's a CEO or something like that of Team Wellness, which is out of Detroit by Eastern Market, if you know the area. Her husband works at Chrysler in Auburn Hills. He's got it, but he actually got it somewhere in Detroit, because Chrysler was only giving it to employees who had the Chrysler insurance. He has my daughter's insurance. So one of the things a group of us has been doing on Tuesday morning at 8:30, been calling the health department and stuff like that. So we had, when we left at end of February, we had helped 60 some people get registered. And here, if you get the first one, we automatically give you a date for the second one. We've been in Florida here till Friday. So we've gone to a couple places, but ate outside. Of course, masks going in, going out. Waitresses all had masks. And my wife has commented several times that she was surprised how many people were wearing masks down here, because you listen to the news reports and it sounded like Florida was wide open and nobody was doing any safety measures. And so wherever we have a takeout or whatever, McDonald's getting a pop or whatever, they've all had their masks on. Now you go down the street to the local dives, the bars, and they're shoulder to shoulder with no masks, but we don't go to those places anyways.
What city do you live in?
We're in what they call Indian Rocks Beach, which is on the Gulf, about 4.5, 5 miles south of Clearwater Beach. So, we see the ocean, the Gulf, right outside the balcony. So,
Gosh, I'm about 40 miles south of you.
Well, 40 miles, you're about, well, you're not in Venice, that's farther.
No, north, just north of Bradenton.
Okay. All right. We were down in Venice last week to visit a lady I used to work with. She wanted to show us, for 2 years now, wanted to show us Venice. Quaint little town, kind of like Saugatuck, but more populated. Also Venice, and just south of it, Inglewood, is the shark capital of the world. If you're looking for shark teeth, those are the two places to go. Not much up here, but definitely down in that 7 mile area, lots of shark teeth. Okay, that's about it.
On to Frank Unger.
Oh, hello, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, Easter. Tells you what age I'm at. I was with Dick, and he and I were the last ones to be in our class of 65. I left in my 8th year. I have been vaccinated. My second shot was about 2 months ago. I was in the same place that Paul got his, the fairgrounds, and they had a really efficient thing. So I've been able, and I have been going out with my friends for the last couple of weeks, after Mass on Sunday and that kind of thing. Just grab a quick breakfast or something like that. And it's just kind of nice to relax that way again. I was exposed to someone, I found out, who had the virus, and I took the test last week and I'm negative. But you can still get it and pass it on to someone else. So you still have to be careful. That's about it.
Okay, on to Al Wahmhoff. Where did Al go? Oh, there he is. Got to turn your mic on, Al.
Mute.
There you go.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, somehow I got thrown out, and then when I came in, I was mute. Okay, you can hear me now. Class is 66. I got my second shot, actually both shots, over in Mishawaka, Indiana, which was only a 4 hours one direction east from here. I'm in Iowa. I've been here in Iowa since pretty much since 1982, when I came to do some construction work out here. We haven't gone out much of anything yet. We spent an Easter with just 2 of our friends from here, and our families stayed home. My daughter's in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and my son's in Chicago. So we kept them from being exposed. And it was very hard to get the shots. That's why I ended up going clear to Mishawaka, Indiana, to get mine through Sam's Club over there. And once I got signed up for the first one, they gave me the date for the second one, Moderna. And that's about it.
Okay, how about Jerry Willing?
Yes, I'm in Saginaw, Michigan, and I was at St. Joe's for 6 years. I think from 56 to 62, a classmate of Norb Bufka. And after that, I went to St. Paul Seminary for 2 years of philosophy in Minnesota, and then 3 years of theology at St. John's Provincial in Plymouth, Michigan. And during that time, I became a subscriber to the National Catholic Reporter, and I found out about Teilhard de Chardin. And a year before ordination, I got kicked out with 8 other guys. And I was so shocked that I asked the faculty for a written explanation of the reasons of my dismissal. Reason number 1, he pursues ideas beyond his intellectual abilities. And that was referring to my love of Chardin. And I agreed with that criticism because I had to read Chardin 2 or 3 times to understand him. Second, I was questioning authority. In the National Catholic Reporter, I was one of the original subscribers, and I got half of my classmates to subscribe to it. And we always questioned authority, not antagonistically, but rationally. And anyway, after I was really depressed when I got kicked out of the seminary, went into child welfare, then eventually got a scholarship, went to University of Michigan, got a MSW, then I became the director of a crisis center in Detroit for 15 years and taught at Wayne State and then Michigan State. And fell in love with this amazing woman. We had a wonderful 3-year marriage, 30-year marriage. That's her. She passed away. I'm grieving her loss a few years ago. That's her picture behind me. But anyway, I have an amazing life and really enjoy being together with many of you I don't know well, but looking forward to hearing about your life stories and discussing the issues that we'll be discussing tonight.
I was pointed out that I missed Tom Dalton in the whole thing.
Who pointed that out?
That was the watchdog, Bill Gebhard.
Yeah, well, I was classmates with Dick and Frank for 1 year. So that was 59, 60. After that, most of our class left, I think. A lot of our class left. Did a lot of different things, worked in radio, television, or primary television, mostly. Ended up working for the diocese after I got a master's degree, which was the same one that Norb Bufka got in pastoral studies from Loyola University in New Orleans. It was an extension program. I went through the Diocese of Grand Rapids. Norb went through, I believe it was the Diocese of Saginaw.
Correct.
So I did that and ended up working for the diocese, first as the director of St. Henry Spirituality and Ministry Center, which is what St. Henry Hall became after Bishop Rose decided that a meeting center would be nice. They converted the rooms so that they lost a couple of rooms, but each room had its own bathroom. No gang showers left. Then Bishop Hurley decided that the diocesan offices should be all in one place. And so he bought some property down near the cathedral, created Cathedral Square. And we were getting ready to move there. And he said, you know, we're not going to have any kind of overnight thing or any meeting, whatever, no place. And so you will be the director for child and youth protection. So I said, okay. And so I started learning what had to be done for that while we were still at the Burton Street location. And about a week before he moved, he said, you know, we are having meeting rooms and we do need to have somebody that will take care of that and make sure things get booked properly and it's set up. So you're also going to be the conference center director. So I had 2 full-time jobs and trying to figure out which was which and what time I had to devote to which one. Sometimes was a challenge, but I did enjoy it. So I retired from the diocese back in 2016 after working 15 years. So that was like from 01 through 08 at Burton Street and then downtown. So I'm still living only about a 10-minute walk from the grounds on Burton Street.
And for those of you who don't already remember it, Tom is our sort of resident photographer there about what's been going on over on the former seminary grounds. And Tom, why don't you just tell what we discovered about a week ago, the newest edition.
The picnic shelter, southwest corner, on the west side of the main building, kind of the southwest corner. They're building a picnic pavilion, as it were. It's not real big, but there's something there. And I'm just wondering, we never got anything like that. We just had to go outside and sit on the grass, or maybe over by St. Henry. I guess they had some benches or whatever, but gosh, we never got a picnic pavilion. But they're still working on it. So once it gets completed, and who knows when that's going to be, I will take another picture of the completed version of it and send it on so everybody can see it.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see the changes that have taken place. Last time I was over there was, well, we were still talking about having a reunion in 2019 before things went south. So I got over there and took some pictures of at that point, pretty much abandoned grounds. And I got in a little bit inside the building itself, but Dave Hooper, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
can't see you.
Okay, I'm here. I'm struggling with Zoom etiquette because I'm not skilled or educated in it. We were having trouble getting our internet connection, and so we got back on just after 7 o'clock. So as I sat down and signed in originally, my wife brought my dinner to me. And so I'm trying to figure out, do you eat in front of them? If you blacked out, can't they still hear the silverware clicking? So I thought, I will leave this video off and the audio on.
Dave, we want to know what you got to eat there. Dave, tell us what you're having for dinner, would you?
No, I'll put it on the video if you want to. No, no, I am having like kind of pasta puffs and chicken and beans and some wonderful leftover Easter cake. So I'll probably be still on black for about a half hour, but I am hearing everything that's going on, and I will reappear in due time. Okay.
We'll be over tomorrow, Dave. Just save a little.
I've introduced before. I can do a 2-minute sketch for you if you want again, or if you just want to let me have dinner.
Okay, let me just give a quick update here. Couple things. One is Monsignor Terry Stewart sent over a photo that he took of Bishop Rose about a week ago, and I haven't got around to sending out that to the entire group. But here's the picture. I'm going to switch over to there. Let's see. There he is. And you can see how he's lost a lot of weight. He's 91 now. And Terry says, he's really struggling with the dementia. This is a picture of them from last year on his 90th birthday. So you can see he's lost quite a bit of weight in the last year or so. So it's a little of concern to everybody, but he's apparently still hanging in there. Now let me get out of that stop sharing thing. Okay. One other thing that I discovered in the last couple of weeks is that on my local cable system, which is Xfinity Comcast, we can now get YouTube on the big screen. And I decided I'd go in there and just to see if I could find the videos, the YouTube videos of the seminary. And sure enough, they were there. So if you want to go in and look at some of those things on the big screen, and I tell you, I was just absolutely amazed when I saw the work, especially that, forgetting his name, Bob Lazinski, was that it from?
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he put together those, well, just about all of the videos and the audios that we have up there. And if you want to go in there and search, look for the term St. Joe Memories, just ST period Joe Memories. And there's a lot of St. Joe Seminary groups up there with all their posts, but St. Joe Memories will take you right over to the ones that we got up there at the moment. I was really amazed too, as I said, that the work that he put into those two-part videos a couple of years back showing life around, must have been 59, 60, 61, right in that ballpark. It was just incredible to see those things on a big screen instead of just a little computer screen. So if you got a chance to, and it varies, I guess, with your local provider, whether or not they allow you to get into YouTube without a charge. I know some people have said that if you have one of those Roku setups that you're able to get into YouTube, but if you get a chance, go ahead and take a look at that. There's a really good one too that I put in there that Samaritas put together when they had their virtual ribbon cutting last November. And so that gives you a really good view of what was going on inside the old seminary, at least as of last November. Really impressive, the work that they've done. So with that, I guess we can kind of toss it open to questions and discussion. I know that Frank, you mentioned the issue of women in the church, and so why don't you kind of lead off with that, and then the other people can just kind of join in as they want.
Well, I was going to pick up on a little bit on what Pete sent us about that group of nuns in California that had founded their own high school and university, and then had to protect it from the archdiocese from it being shut down by incorporating or something. I forget all the details, but it's interesting how women in the church have been marginalized. And the point I wanted to make was I attend church. I have a summer home in northern Wisconsin in a little town called Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin. It's right on the UP border. And up in that neck of the woods, there is one priest for 4 parishes. So we're in the Diocese of Superior, Wisconsin, and the diocese has hired 3 women to run 3 of the parishes, and then the one priest is at the main parish, in the Eagle River. So there's a woman, she's got a degree in theology, who runs the parish that I attend, not every Sunday, but sometimes attend church at. She's a very, very dynamic woman. She does all the CCD, visiting the sick. She, all the collection issues on any, she is in charge of the choir, and she preaches. Well, they took that preaching business away from her. They don't allow her to preach anymore. I think she was becoming too popular. There were more people attending the non-mass services than there were attending the one day out of the weekend a priest-run service. She was getting too popular, and they took that away from her. And just one more incident in my mind of marginalizing women. Very, very dynamic woman, great public speaker, wonderful sermons. In fact, probably the best sermons I've heard in the last 10 years have all been done by women. Dick Host is not here. I don't want to put a dig into Dick Host, but it just seems that there's so many of the men priests who give sermons that they just check off the boxes and maybe repeat some of the same stuff they've been saying for 20 years. So that was the point I was trying to make, that the church doesn't seem to want to open up the doors for women to be in any major role.
Well, I said we should pursue this. I'm also a Frank, because Pete brought it up.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
And the thing of it is we just, there's hardly any influence of women in the church. And I think that is really kind of a grave error. I mean, for instance, when we had this child abuse issue, if we would have had a few key women in the church who held responsibility and were held in respect, I think that would have been stopped in its tracks years before. I mean, what woman especially, they're the ones who bring forth children and raise them even more than even the best intentioned husbands do. Think about it, They basically tell us, hey guys, what are you doing? What's going through your heads? And then the last thing I'd like to point out, and it comes from a point of ignorance on my part, is I've been told by a couple of people that women cannot be priests, that it's basically posited in the foundations of our religion, not just a practice like whether a priest can marry or not. And I'm wondering if there's someone out there who's more knowledgeable about that than I am. Okay,
When about 33 years ago, we used to go up to Birch Run. I think it was Birch Run is exit 136, and we used to go to 149 at the Holodome, stay there. And church was right down the street. A nun ran the parish, gave the sermon. They had a visiting priest go to several parishes, but it was basically a nun back then. And I think that was Saginaw Diocese. So I don't know what's been happening.
It might vary from diocese to diocese. I'm just, my experience has been in this northern Wisconsin diocese, Superior Diocese. But I don't see any women in Chicago churches in any major role. The two or three that I
In the last
attended.
33 years, we don't go there that often. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm not a every Sunday churchgoer. I admit that. In fact, out of 7 children, my father and mother had actually had 9 babies, 9 children. 2 died at birth. Of the 7 of us, only my oldest sister is still a practicing Catholic. I'm a part-time Catholic. The other 5 are doing something else. So in my own family, we're not many of us are Catholic.
I'm curious, what do you guys think Monsignor Felicki would say about this topic?
He was my pastor.
Oh, he was?
Yes.
It's the Sacred Heart?
Yes.
Did Skip Obermiller go to school with you guys? John Obermiller?
No.
I can't remember what years John was there. He was only there for a couple of years, but he said he saw Monsignor Felicki at Sacred Heart once, and he was kind of, before Mass, he wasn't really paying attention or anything else, and he saw Felicki, and all of a sudden he sat straight up and put his hands on his knees like he's back in the seminary.
Well, I've said for years that if you want to get anything done, let a woman do it.
I'm kind of curious, what are things like in the Grand Rapids Diocese?
Yeah.
Well, Pete, can you answer that one?
I mean, as far as involvement by women?
Yeah.
The only one I know, we had Tom, who was she? Did she just die recently? She was the first.
Patrice.
Her position was pretty high.
And she's like a chancellor or
In
something.
what parish do you know?
Well, she worked for the diocese.
That was Sister Patrice Konwinski, who was the
Yeah.
chancellor. Yeah, she was my supervisor for a bit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, she died, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago or something like that. But she was not, I don't think the first, but one of the first women to hold the position of chancellor for a diocese. And she was, well, you know, she was a Dominican sister.
She held that position for a number of years, didn't she, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly how many years, but at least 10, I think is more than 10.
It
I
was
think.
over a decade.
Yeah, so it was for some time. She retired in 2008, just as the diocesan offices were moving to downtown. She did not move downtown with everybody.
From the press, it seems, I don't know if there's kind of a retro deal going on with nuns, that there's large numbers of them are, you know, starting to wear the habits and kind of like they used to be in the 50s and stuff like that, and kind of parallel with what I see as priests too, going back, you know, to the Latin, and they're not, you know, they're not facing the people anymore, and they're really adopting the liturgies that we grew up with in the 50s. So I don't know. It kind of concerns me that both nuns and priests are actually going, in my mind, they're going backwards. So I don't know what that's all about. I don't understand it. I don't know why, but they're doing it. And young people, I guess, young people like that stuff too. So I don't know what's happening. I'm puzzled.
It would be interesting for me to know kind of what the how that attendance has changed over the last 20 years or 30 years. I would my children are all attending Methodist churches or other denominations. I think because of the way women were treated in the church.
I have two daughters, and one of them belongs to a very conservative Catholic family. You know, not the ones that go back to the Latin and everything. And the other one is religious in her own soul, if you will, but she's not really practiced the tradition that was ours. So it's a very interesting situation. We have a big church here in Kalamazoo called the Valley Church right along I-94. And they're comprised of all kinds of denominations. And the largest denomination there are people who've basically left the Catholic Church.
Just seems like it just the last day or two there was an article probably in the Times or the Washington Post about church attendance during the pandemic and whether or not the pandemic is going to have a long-term effect on just church or religious institutions across this whole spectrum. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what actually takes place in that regard. And it just seemed like it isn't just the Catholic Church that is faced with dwindling participation, but it seems to, from what I've been able to see, runs across.
I read a similar article in our diocesan paper, maybe a month ago, and they are anticipating that as the pandemic ends, attendance at church will not rebound to where it was before in fairly large percentages. So they're worried that
It's over there.
even though we've had sort of dwindling participation, especially of younger people in recent years, that's going to get far worse. People have gotten used to being at home, and they've wandered around the TV dial and found there were some other things that they found that were supportive more than their parish was. So,
We'll give you in St. Francis of Assisi Parish here in Ann Arbor, which has something like 3,000 families. It's the largest in the city. And prior to the pandemic, I don't know if this is an indicator, but in the diocesan, the annual fund and everything, the goal was $200,000 that the diocese, the parish had to give to the, turn over to the diocese. And this year, they basically have the same goal, $210,000. And they've run this for about 2 months at this point, the diocese and the church going on. And they have only collected $20,000 of the goal of $210,000. The parish still runs the school. I mean, the school is open as far as attendance, and they have observed the protocol regarding the distancing and how many people can attend church and that. And I attended Sunday for the first time almost since the pandemic started. I did one other time too. And the attendance, I go view the mass every day at 10 o'clock. They have a daily mass. And they have about, I would say 30 people that attend. I used to go once a week, and that's held steady, but it's the same people that attended before the pandemic, basically. And they're all people that are our age, and have had, if you will, kind of the traditional Catholic upbringing as far as going to, I think, Catholic schools and the like. The parish also has held, like stations online and or stream that or whatever. I don't know. It's through YouTube somehow. And I attended those and different things, but I'm always curious about the same, how many people are actually watching it on, I'll just say watching it on TV. And I often think, kind of going back to the days of St. Joe's, and during that area, there used to be Father Hugh Michael Ban, who some of you probably, if you recall, might have served, they used to have the Sunday Mass and may have served on TV or been part of that TV Mass. I always felt that he had a lot of insight and forward looking, I think. And I remember too, another thing, as far as reaching out, because I don't think that, in response, what's going to happen, I don't think that the church is doing a very good job of reaching out, but they used to have Bishop Sheen. I don't know if you remember that. It was a 15-minute, and then Father Ban used to do them, and they were very good. Frank talks about people that could communicate. I thought they were just top drawer. And what will happen? I think it's a really good question. How many people are going to, and I think they're kind of struggling with that. I'm talking about the clergy, but I don't hear the priest or anything kind of when they give their sermons, you wouldn't even know there's a pandemic most of the time. I mean, and their topic of their sermons and the like, and which is really surprising to me. I mean, remember when there was the 9/11, you would not even know that 9/11 happened, you know, in the Sunday service. And I had a brother that was in the middle of that. Fortunately, he survived. I don't know what it did with his head altogether, but still he survived. And the other interesting thing is that our next door neighbor had a bar mitzvah right about that time. And we attended it because my son was one of his best friends. And the reaction of the rabbi and his sermon during the bar mitzvah was very different than the perspective of the church. I just, I just can't, I don't see that what Frank's kind of saying. Maybe the nun caught this, the connection between, what the people in the pews are thinking and feeling and what's going on in the altar. I feel like we're time warped in the 5th grade trying to teach catechism. Sorry, Dave, I don't mean to slam you on this at all, but this is just a reaction of somebody that attended pretty regularly and just see the relevance of things and trying to induce you to be, interested and committed to your religion is, I don't see it. And my point is that I think that may have an effect on what happens if the pandemic gets over. And I don't know who is it, Jim Hammond or something mentioned the fact that people are finding things on TV that are going on. I mean, the only other thing is it almost sounds like a commercial and I don't listen to it enough, but there's a early morning show on NPR. You can get called On Being, which is incredibly good. If you ever get a chance to, it's by the way, Frank, Marfia, that is done by a woman who went to Yale University. So, but I know that was tongue in cheek, but I'm dead serious. I think it's worth, if you go on the net and listen in, you get a lot of insights, I think, into the connection between a person and nature and their whole being. So thanks for listening to this little diatribe, but I appreciate all your other ideas too. Thank you.
How can the church survive when it's kind of eliminates 50% of the population from being a major part of it? I can't see it happening.
Well, and what I was talking about is not women just on a diocesan level or anything else like that, but basically part of the basic structure of the church on the top level. That was there when Jesus lived, Mary Magdalene and that. And Mary was there and everything, but we don't have anything comparable to that in this age at all. Bill, you make a good point.
The parish that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. The parish that we attend over here, throughout our time here, would have mass in the church and in the chapel every Sunday. And then for Easter, they also had a tent. So yes, people were 6 feet apart, so on and so forth. But they come to this parish. And I think their Sunday collection is about $25,000 to $30,000. So that's not too bad. But again, there's probably a lot of vacation people, so it's a lot of older groups. And they follow through with, and they've got a dynamic program, for the kids and everything. So at least this one is St. Petersburg diocese is doing pretty good.
Well, our parish that I go to in Portage is pretty much the same way. Their collections are pretty much in the same neighborhood of yours. And I'm not knocking women's leadership in our parish because it stands at a pretty good level. But in general, the church is not influenced by women all that much on the top level. And not only that, but it just seems like parish life is almost, the priesthood has almost been homogenized and pasteurized, if you will. The parish I belonged to was run by Marianists back in like 1990 and that. And it was a huge parish that had really dynamic participation. And part of these orders, they seem to run a parish more successfully in many ways. Every parish that I know that's run by an order seems to be more personal to the people. And it's just an observation I've noticed. I'm not running down our present clergy or anything like that, but there's nothing that just makes anything break out to people.
You know, I've always wondered about the nuns who were at the seminary, the Order of Preachers, the OPs, and it seemed like, well, their whole role was just to cook, to clean the place, essentially to mop up after the men. And I was really surprised when I came down to Detroit and ran into the niece of who was a niece of the pastor of our church in Muskegon, St. Joe's, Sister Eugenia Stratz. And we just sort of struck up conversations every now and then. She worked at the same agency that I worked at, working with senior citizens. And, you know, she was mentioned several times that their purpose in existence was preaching. And that was the first that had ever even occurred to me, that the Order of Preachers was really in the business of preaching and education, not in like manual service to the church. That was just an observation that I had, and it sort of stuck with me over the years. The other thing, I think it was in that article that Pete passed along, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the IHMs, wasn't that mentioned in that article? About I think they had that school out in California. That does that sound familiar to you, Pete?
Yes, you're right. Yep.
Right. And in the Detroit area, the IHMs had ran Marygrove College and Immaculata High School on the same campus. And it wasn't until I read that the Times article that even occurred to me that there were IHMs in different parts of the country. I always thought they were sort of a locally based organization. Does anybody have any insight into that order?
I think I do. The IHMs around Michigan are based in Monroe, south of Detroit, and they're a huge community. And I think there were three large, I don't know what they called their territories, but three large groupings of them, kind of east, Midwest, and west. Each of which probably numbered in the thousands at one point, but now are maybe even all combined into one province. I don't know. They seem to, one of the ways of dealing with the decline was like two provinces would go into one. And, but there, I mean, I have a lot of friends who are IGM sisters, and there's certainly, in addition to Marygrove and their educational ministries, they're very active. Another instance of nuns who have been influential lately, just because she's retiring, the sister who's worked in social justice and is known most for the quote nuns on the bus movement each time around, especially around presidential elections. A group of nuns will tour the country, making presentations on social justice issues and political issues from the Catholic point of view. And she initiated that. They've been doing that for about 15 years. She's retiring, but the work is continuing on. It's not a high publicity kind of thing, except in political times, but they've done some really good work. But it's here and there. It's not like a whole culture, or a whole country, or a whole region, or their numbers have declined. And I mean, she's 75.
Dave, there's also in Monroe, the Dominican sisters are there.
The Dominicans are in Adrian.
Right, but they're also in Monroe. Their mother house is in Monroe.
No, the mother house for Adrian is wait a minute, am I getting the Immaculate Heart of Mary sisters are in Monroe.
So are the
The Adrian Dominicans are in Adrian, Michigan.
Right, I've met in fact, I had to do a evaluation of their college, and I met the what do you call it, the president there. And she wanted to have a football team there, so they brought in a football team. But the interesting thing, one of the nuns I met was from Chicago. This is in Adrian, and she was the sister of the comedian Bill Murray. I thought that was interesting. But the history, Bill Yagerlener, regarding the Dominicans, their letters afterwards are order of preachers. And St. Dominic, when you go back to the Middle Ages, started them. And they also got into the design of the churches there. Since they were preachers, they had what's called the shotgun churches, which were just straight churches without any transepts. But then you mentioned a little bit later that, and that's how Francis of Assisi kind of changed the world, because he was dedicated to helping the poor, and they were more mendicant in their focus, and it all revolved around what was going on in Italy at that time. But many people have said that talking about Francis of Assisi and St. Dominic, they were giants, but St. Francis of Assisi was said to have changed the church because of his commitment to helping the poor. And there, you can go on into the story. But the only other thing I can say, in Grand Rapids, it was kind of literally right in front of me, because my sister, we lived right by Marywood. My sister went to school there. Aquinas College, which was a Dominican college, and maybe I think Jim Blanchard went there, was the Dominican college. And I was in St. Thomas, which was taught by Dominican sisters. And we would get some of the nuns that were kind of student teaching and the like from Aquinas, and they were all music teachers. So as a consequence, we were really well versed in music, which was, as I gained older, I thought it was a great thing in a lot of ways, very kind of a luxury. So the orders and their impact is kind of interesting, I think, and their influence on the church seems to be not as strong as it could be when you think about what happened during the Middle Ages and the like.
When you were in your 5th and 6th year at St. Joe's, did you have any classes at Aquinas, or were they all at St. Joe's?
They were all at St. Joe's. The funny thing was that I lived right up the street from Aquinas College off of Fulton Street. And so I often thought about it. I used to walk by there every single day, Aquinas College. And I thought, well, you know, like eventually I ended up in Ann Arbor. I figured I always lived in a college town or by a college my whole life. It's something I wanted, but it wasn't. It was just interesting how it has grown and the like with. I'm talking about Aquinas and you know, its influence in that.
Those of us in the class of '66, we took at least. Am I wrong, guys? 2 classes at Aquinas.
Yep.
Only 2. Is that right, Albert?
Well, music appreciation and physiology or something
And
like
physics.
that.
And physics.
Physics, but eventually the physics teacher came to St. Joe
Oh, he did. Okay.
and we didn't.
See, I always thought of Paul Banner as our true physics teacher. Because my memory is we'd come back in a bus from Aquinas College, and some of us who really, I guess, wanted to get an A anyway, would go into a room with Paul Banner, and he would explain what the teacher taught us, supposed to have taught us that day.
Now the teacher, as I recall, was Korean.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
And so he was, not only was the physics out of our league, but the language was also foreign.
That's
It's all Greek.
Remember, it's gyro, almost nothing, but it's not nothing. It's gyro. It's not gyro. It's close to gyro, but not gyro. Right? It's close to gyro, but not gyro. Remember this?
The year before, when Dick and I went to physics, it was taught by a young man who was so smart he just basically blew us away. And his name was Joseph Wiz, and his middle initial was G.
That's the short and Polish name. Gosh, you got a kick out of that. It was Joseph G. Wiz. Frank Scheid.
And he felt so bad because he couldn't teach us that stuff too well. We weren't getting it. He says, you guys are intelligent enough. And we finally had to tell him that our math background was so poor, we just couldn't push the numbers, you know.
Just told him we could parse Latin very well, and we did have Paul Banner in our class. That was our problem.
I hope I'm not embarrassing you, Paul, but you really were good at helping us understand some of that stuff.
I really liked math, just very, very much. When I left the seminary, I finished my college work at Grand Valley, and that was back when Grand Valley was a pretty small campus, and putting together a program to have to get a BA in was a bit of a challenge, and the philosophy background that I had just from Baltimore mostly, and our language, Latin and Greek. The philosophy department at Grand Valley really loved me, and I took a few philosophy courses. The Grand Valley is an interesting school as it was formed. That the people who were putting together the education program there hired 4 or 5 or 6 very noted, influential doctors of various academic programs. And one of these men was Harry Jellema. He was a philosophy professor at University of Indiana. He might have been head of the department down there. I'm not positive about that. But at Grand Valley, every freshman, one requirement was a semester or they were on, not semesters, they were on quarters or whatever, was taught by Harry Jellman. And he lectured this course in a large lecture hall because they had all the freshmen in there, and made a big impression on the student body. I did not take that course. It did not make me do that for whatever reason, but I did have I did an independent study with him, and he read some of my other papers because they got passed around. But what I was coming around to was, I was really interested in math, and our math was pretty weak. But I started out with a review course of algebra. It was a self-taught, self-paced course. You had a booklet that we worked through in a classroom. We had a Grand Valley graduate student who assisted in the course. She was not, Grand Valley didn't have any grad students at that point, but she was an upper class math major. She understood math. She didn't understand how to teach it. There is a concept in math called absolute value, which is in lay terms, it is the non-negative, or it is, the value of a number without a number sign on it. Math defines this as the absolute value of A is A if A is positive. It is minus A if A is negative. And A has two vertical lines on each side of it to denote absolute value. And we had a terrible time getting that concept into our head because it was this young lady, it was the absolute value was positive if the number was positive. It was negative of the number if the number wasn't positive. And that's what it was. And she couldn't explain it in any other terminology.
He was absolutely right. Huh?
Yes.
That's what our Korean professor was trying to tell us.
I guess.
Almost zero, but it's not zero. Remember, it's not zero. It's almost zero, but not zero.
Do you guys remember?
He said this was his 7th year of teaching, but only his 2nd year in English. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I do. He also he had a terrible time. A couple of our classmates, I'm sure they told us privately that they wanted to fail that class. And he must have been told that he wasn't allowed to fail us. I don't think anybody got less than a D.
Well, my best education of physics, perhaps, was that I had the fortune of, and I had to do this by myself. I went to the University of Padua in Italy, which was the first or second university in the Western world. I'm walking around and there's this like stairway, and just next to the stairway, you know, there's a little alcove kind of thing, and there's this wooden pile, which supposedly was the lectern of Galileo. I should have taken a picture of it, but it was a very interesting experience when you think about the start of education and what it was doing, and even the influence that the seminary, when Paul alluded to this, is the fact that I learned more after I left the seminary regarding what all this stuff meant as far as what they taught us, both in philosophy and in Greek and everything, by just understanding the Greek language and what the words meant. An example I got, I was taking a genetics test and I didn't study the definitions. And so I, you know, there's like 500 people in there because they're all going to med school and that. And so I, you know, I didn't panic, but I just took the definition, just broke the words down and just wrote the Greek meanings basically. And I passed them all just by just remembering, you know, the meanings of the Greek words. And I don't know, there's this kind of a side story. I remember once that Frank Unger took a test in geometry. We had a test and Frank forgot to study for it. I was always amazed at this. And Frank got 100 on it. I don't know how he did it. I mean, Frank was good in math, but it's just the fact that beginning to understand the meanings of things, especially in philosophy and in the stories. And one thing that amazed me about the seminary was the fact that we were studying some of the richest literature in the world. I mean, you know, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and we never discussed it. At least and Monsignor Shaw really knew this stuff. I mean, he was a very good teacher. And I just, it was amazing. In fact, to this day, I've always been fascinated by the Greeks because I keep going into the things that they kept teaching, that Paul's, you know, and how they resonate in everything we do. And, you know, Paul was wise enough to catch on to all this while we were there. While we were just, I was just struggling to, I commend him for that. And I think that his insight and understanding is to be commended.
I want to tie this back a little bit. The talking about math and physics and didn't really mesh in our curriculum. And I've thought many times over the years that one of the things that the church struggles with is that its leadership was not really schooled to appreciate or understand science. And so we see that reverberate also through how the church looks at many things. And some of the most recent is even has to do with how vaccines were created. And I wasn't surprised that the discussion in the church had to do with to what extent aborted fetuses and were used, and these fetuses were aborted 40 years ago in the vaccine development. But I was surprised that they didn't talk at all about the CRISPR technology that was used to manipulate and change genes, which has enormous ethical and other issues in society, and that wasn't even brought up. But it was that technology that, you know, applied in a good way, helped develop the vaccines, can also be applied in other ways that are much more problematic. But I do think, back looking at needing more women influence in the church, there's a lot of things the church needs. A lot of influences and perspectives it needs. It needs women, it needs science, it needs a number of other things. And And it's not going to connect with current and coming generations if it doesn't provide that. The society will just move right on past it. There'll be pockets, but I think it's an enormous challenge. I think Francis tried to do some of that when he came in, and after all, he has a degree in chemistry. But I think he got a lot of pushback and has struggled with the ability to bring any of that in.
You know, looking back at our education, and this gets into the history of the seminary, for a number of years, and I think maybe Jerry might be able to recall that there was a layman who taught chemistry for a number of years.
Mr. Bellardo.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I never, could figure out from all the works, that Norm put together exactly when he left. But I recall our class, we had now Bishop Rose teaching chemistry. Is that correct to my memory?
Yes.
Yes.
And
He also said the very first class that if we have an explosion, whether on the first day or the last day, you flunk.
Yeah, it was an automatic failure.
He did say that, and one of the
I remember that. Yeah.
the biggest explosion we had in the class was created by him.
Yeah.
He dropped a small chunk of sodium into the sink, and it exploded. And I've often remembered those two statements.
Well, I recall that, I don't know if it's the biggest explosion or anything else, but I believe that there was a couple of students who were trying to mix hydrogen and oxygen, when they were separating it. And I don't know the whole circumstance, but it kind of came to a unfortunate result.
Frank, you and I were the ones. Do you remember the Buntsman burner, and we had the oxygen, and he went just like that after it hit the fire. We were lucky.
We weren't responsible for the lecture from Father Rose because we got the same one at the beginning of the year.
Well, that's true, but we didn't know what we were doing either.
No, we didn't.
One thing, and speaking about women, that's something that hit me is that the fact that in starting with the seminary, so that's a freshman year in high school, and going all the way through high school and 2 years of college until I got to the University of Michigan, I never had a woman as a teacher. Now, in elementary school I did because I had nuns, but I often thought about that as far as insight into life and, whatever subject area that I was studying. What kind of difference would that have made just being regarding your one's attitude about life and how you think and the like. So just a comment, but it was something that I always thought about.
I'm curious on what your reaction was to Jim Hannick running for governor of California.
Well, Jerry Brown did, didn't he?
He won.
Do you think Jim has an equal chance?
No. I don't. And I know Jim fairly well, but I don't think he has a chance.
Now, getting back for a second to the science curriculum that we experienced, I guess teaching, we sort of assumed that the people like Father Rose at the time, now Bishop Rose, that they were teaching things that they were schooled in. that they had some academic degree or some academic experience in that. And same thing with, I think it was later Bishop McKinney taught us biology, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, he did.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, I think they were good at, in retrospect, they were good at following the text and communicating what we were supposed to learn out of the text, but they didn't seem to have any academic background that would have qualified them for teaching in the sciences. And I got to thinking, after I had left back in '66, I think that the seminary in particular was starting to experience the problem of getting qualified academics to teach some of the more scientific and mathematical areas that were. I sort of thought that that maybe the seminary was faced with the problem of what do they call that when you're like your school is certified by the North Central Organization or something
No,
like that.
that's what I do.
Oh, okay. And I sort of got the feeling that they were falling way behind in qualifying for accreditation. And so that may have been one of the reasons why we started going over to Aquinas to get some academic exposure to it, so that they could say that through the affiliation with Aquinas that we were getting the areas, schooling in the areas that they weren't able to provide for us.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I kind of agree with you there. I was not dissatisfied with what I learned in chemistry and biology. I had a propensity. I loved the natural sciences. Okay. And so I'd always read a little deeper into those things than that. But what happened at that point of time is the point that you're making is very correct, because what was happening to the science of biology into the science of chemistry at that time was just amazing. It was just exploding. Okay. And so where 5 or 10 years before you could teach biology and chemistry that way, by the time of say 63 or 64, that just didn't teach you enough so that you learned what modern biology or chemistry was. You got into microbiology and they got into things like atoms and things. And in chemistry, that much, even on a greater scale, they were finding things like quarks and things like that. And you just can't have a person who's exposed as an academic, like you say, Bill, and teach a subject like that and teach it well.
Well, we had Sputnik during that time, that influenced that. But I can say a couple things. Everyone here on this Zoomcast, none of you have a high school diploma. The only thing, and this is what the seminary did, that you had to pass 10 tests through the Catholic University. And that's what in quotes accreditation was. I mean, that was kind of, you got a certificate, and that's from Catholic University. If you went all the years and you had to get a score of, I believe 70, they used to post the scores after you took the test, where biology or English or whatever. And that was what, in answer to you, Bill, that's what they were doing. But I also think that the explosion with science, and I think you're all correct, was the fact that Sputnik went up and everybody kind of began to ask serious questions about what's being learned in science. So,
and resonating with what Frank said, one of the tragedies is that Chardin, who was a Jesuit paleontologist, I'm guessing most of you are familiar with him, he was silenced during his whole life. And if we had listened to him, and that would have been part of our education, in 1929, he said, the church is standing on 3 shaky pillars. Its overemphasis on tradition with no future vision. Number 2, its devaluation of women. And number 3, my aging brain doesn't recall. But as Frank mentioned, there was an explosion of knowledge in physics. And amazingly, the physicists in the last 20 years are drifting towards spirituality as they deepen their understanding. I just finished reading this amazing book, From Science to God by Peter Russell. He was an agnostic physicist who studied under Stephen Hawking, and he came to a deep spiritual awareness that all of cosmos is infused with the divine. And he ends quoting Teilhard de Chardin, someday when we have mastered the winds and the waves and the tides and gravity, we will harness for God the energies of love. And then for the second time in the history of the world, mankind will have discovered fire. June and I had that quote in our wedding because I've really been excited about being alive with this vision of Chardin. And currently, you may or may not be familiar with Ilia Delio. She's a PhD, and she's running a center called Christogenesis, or the Christic Center. But she has monthly commentaries on Chardin in the communication between spiritual things and scientists. And it's really electrifying.
You know, Jerry, it's amazing. I'm listening to you, and I remember in my 7th and 8th year, I basically swallowed a Chardin hook, line, and sinker, but I was never criticized for it there at St. Mary's in Baltimore, you know, and it's just almost tragic, you know, that you got the treatment that you did, you know, at a different school.
Right.
And
That was caused by suppletions, both of them.
you know, or either that or Jerry, you were such an antistic character that they just threw you out anyway. I don't know. But right now I'm taking a course through these great courses called The Theory of Everything, you know, and it's as deep as a swamp, but it is absolutely amazing, you know, the theory of everything, and they're picking away at it. And it's just fascinating. But I'll get off my soapbox. That was kind of like a side issue there.
Got a question for Jim Blanchard. You kind of are unique in the group that you came a couple of years after the rest of us, the class of 66. And so what was your training or your education like? I never really understood. I mean, things were starting to unravel at the seminary itself, but you were at the seminary from 67 to 73 between St. Joe's and Christopher House. So what was your schooling like?
We had, I would say at least half of the courses or classes were taught by the priests that were on faculty. And then they had a number of people who were outside faculty that would come in to teach classes. And interestingly, they were classes that you wouldn't have expected. Some of them were geometry and U.S. history, English. You know, those typically you would think that, you know, one of the priest faculty members could cover those pretty easily, but they had outside professors for those.
Jim, how much of your college courses were connected to Aquinas?
When we're at Christopher House, all of our classes were at Aquinas.
Okay.
So, and it was kind of amusing because we had to take Old Testament and New Testament theology, and the deacon sister that taught those classes was Sister Amata Fabro, which she's quite a well-known theologian, not only locally, but I was told that internationally she was well recognized. But if you were a seminarian, you just had to show up and you got an A in her class.
Were you in class with other students or just seminarians?
No, we were with the all students. You know, we had to take a certain classes, but we were in with other students. One of the amusing things about one of those, I think it must have been Old Testament theology. We were in with the other students. Sister Amata made it very clear which Bible we were going to use in the class. Well, one of the other students who was not Catholic and was taking this class, he started to read something, and she stopped him and she says, "What Bible are you reading from?" And he says, "I'm reading from the King James Bible." And she says, "No," she says, "you get rid of that. We're not using that in this class." And oddly enough, he became Catholic and went to the seminary and was actually ordained.
How ironic is
That's what the
that?
right Bible will do for you.
How ironic is that?
No. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, it was very interesting. When you talked about Sputnik and the impact on education, I recall when I went down to Wayne State University, originally my goal in life was to teach history at the college level. In fact, they had a course at Wayne State on that very subject, and that was one of the specialties that they offer. So I always thought, wow, this is my dream in life. But then I had to pay the bills, and at that time, the National Defense student loans were available, and so I applied and got loans to cover my 2 additional years of undergraduate work. And the thing about the student defense loans was, regardless of the kind of teaching that you went into, as long as you were in teaching, you got a portion of your loan forgiven for every year that you were teaching. So I thought, well, I'll do that for a while. And I don't remember whether it was 4 or 5 years that you had to put in to get the maximum forgiven, but here I was teaching history and getting the advantage of the National Defense Student Loan to support it. Definitely a non-science, a non-Sputnik, or at that time it was the Vanguard. Remember the old Vanguard satellite program?
Oh, yes.
And so I was able to get my my undergraduate studies paid for through the National Defense Student Loans. So I thought I was taking advantage of the system. I guess whoever wrote the legislation never, maybe they did. They were the classic kind of people, classic thinkers that, people like myself and others who were pursuing non-scientific degrees should be included in the overall education of the next generation of people. So that was a thought that I had.
You could have taught the history of science. Oh,
Oh, Lord. When you talk, somebody mentioned that they didn't run into any women as instructors or professors in their college years. And I got to thinking that was the case even at Wayne State. In the 2 years of undergraduate work that I had, I only had one woman teacher, and she taught anthropology. And I needed one more like scientific course in order to round out get that part of the degree in. So I took a course in anthropology. And the thing, I mean, the fact, it didn't even occur to me at the time, wow, this is the first time that I've run into a woman as an instructor at Wayne State. But the thing that I recall about her was she was an out and out, she made it real clear that she was an atheist. And there wasn't anything that's going to, shake her from that. And I recall that I think I might have questioned her on that at some point in the course of that class. And for the final exam, one of the questions was to rate the class. And I mentioned that I was particularly concerned about the way that she reacted to my question about challenging her atheism, and that it didn't seem to be appropriate for that class to interject, her personal religious or non-religious beliefs and thing. And that was the only class at Wayne State that I got a C in, just barely eked out. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Even, I got to think of, even in when I did my 2 years of graduate work at Wayne State, never had an instructor, and those were all taught by PhDs at that time, and the graduate curriculum. Not a single, there was one woman history teacher in the whole curriculum at the history class at Wayne State. But that was the extent of women at Wayne State University.
They were using the Catholic model.
Yes, no women in history.
Right.
When we went to Aquinas, we had music appreciation with the nun there, the Dominican nun, right?
That's right.
That's true.
Is that Sister Kennedy?
I don't remember.
I recall it was one of Bill Gebhard's favorite classes, though.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I really appreciated the music appreciation class. I mean, it really things have stuck with me from that class. The fact that we learned how to read a score was just incredible. I tell my wife about learning, what was it, the Unfinished Symphony? Wasn't that the one that we?
Yeah.
I thought, I never would have. And now when I go to take in a Detroit Symphony concert, and I'm looking at those musicians and trying to figure out exactly what they're looking at as their score, and how they can figure out where they're supposed to, what they're supposed to be doing at any given time. It was an interesting class. The other thing that I recall about that class was we were talking about Beethoven, and she was asking what was unique about him. And I don't know, I scanned through whatever the book said, but it never, didn't seem to be anything unusual about the guy except for the great music. And then she said, well, he was deaf. And I guess, I don't know if the other guys in the class remembered that. I was, how did we miss that?
Well,
Yes, from the time he was writing his Fifth Symphony on, he was totally deaf.
Maybe that was Gebhard's problem of music appreciation.
No, I learned how to pronounce Berlioz,
Oh, okay.
From that point on, it was pure magic.
I made many trips to the Grand Rapids Library to get that music for us every week. so that we could listen to it.
And, you know, the other, that kind of had a flashback to the record playing that we had at the seminary. And I know, Al, you were involved, that you had the first recorder, tape
Yeah.
recorder, and you were putting those programs together. That was really amazing. I was thinking too, that made me think of, I'm drawing about Bob Lazinski. He must have been carting around a huge tape recorder with him when he was doing all these different recordings of masses and performances. My God, I mean, it wasn't like the little cassettes that we have today. Those were pretty huge. They're probably even bigger than the one that Al had. But I really appreciate what he did when you realize the technology that existed at that time. And you guys graduated in 1961, wasn't it?
Yeah, he and I were classmates, and he did have a tape recorder. That's how he got all of that.
Yeah, just incredible.
Did you ever meet him, Bill?
No, I didn't.
Well, his father owned a pharmacy right next, just down the street, real close to my grandfather. And Jerry he was from St. Isidore's, right on Diamond and Michigan.
Right.
And he was the most energetic person that you would ever meet. He was just kind of, he wasn't real tall. He had really blonde hair, and he was kind of stout, and he loved to sing. He was good too. And, but he was a dynamo. I mean, he would, all of us here would just get up and run after him, and that kind of person. He was kind of life of the party in a certain way, but he was a good singer. He loved to sing. And I recall he was just a dynamic person.
And we had class reunions every 5 years, and sadly, the last few years of his life, he developed Alzheimer's and eventually passed away maybe a couple of years ago.
Okay, thanks. Dave would remember him.
Very
Dave
well.
Hooper.
Very well.
Yeah.
You know, that one of the videos that's on YouTube was of one of the reunions from your class, Jerry, where your classmate Bob Sweet was Jim Sweet.
Yeah.
Was
Jim Swyatt.
Swyatt.
Yeah.
And I recall that you could see Bob Lazinski up there on the side, kind of directing all of the singing that was going on. But it always amazed me, how in the heck could he, like, even the graduating class of 61, the mass from that, he managed to record that. How in the heck did he do that and be in the class ceremonies at the same time? Maybe you got an insight into how that took place.
I don't know.
Is Jim Swyatt alive yet?
Yes, he lives up in Traverse City. He was at our last class reunion 2 years ago, said mass.
I think you and
Dennis Wasco was there too, and Norbufka.
Jerry, you and Jim Swyatt were my first prefects.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I do. But there's a priest who just died from Ann Arbor Diocese. His name is Father Irwin. And one of his best friends was Jim Swyatt. So I never saw him after I left the seminary or anything, but they would always talk about him. He was in the Kalamazoo Diocese.
Yeah.
What was the role of a prefect, Dick?
They used to give bread in the morning on Sunday. They were like
disciplinary.
I don't know. It was just an honorific in a certain sense, but they
weren't priests. They weren't priests, though. No.
They were the
upperclassmen,
classes. They had a lot more students then. And I think the most interesting time was that on a Friday, they all went up and they had these, those stainless steel like ovens that they prepare everything in. They opened them up and they had these long, serving trays, and they had hot dogs on them.
Oh, yeah. I recall that one.
And the nuns, no, it was a Friday, as I said, and everybody just kind of looked at it. Everybody saying, go on, you can have them. And it turned out they were tuna dogs. And they were awful, I thought. But I remember when everybody just kind of, but they also on Sunday morning, they used to have a race to see who could get the bread with the icing on it.
The glazed bread, yes.
Yeah.
You also remember Ron Snyder? He was a classmate. He passed away about a year ago from Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I remember Ron. He was he had blonde hair, tall, kind of thin, yeah.
Really great guy.
When you talk about prefects, Frank, I recall
the role.
I think it had to be in the 6th year that I was one of the prefects for the dormitory.
Whoa.
So we had to go back and stake out that little bed there and kind of keep track of who was, we were sort of, they were in our care. I suspect that there were prefects in the other dorm areas as well. Of course, at the table, everybody was familiar with with that.
Well, the prefect at the table was the oldest of the table. There were 8 people at a table, weren't there?
Yeah.
Or 6?
Yes.
Two prefects at each table.
Okay. So the 2 oldest, or whatever the class was the oldest, probably
The other thing I remember is that Frank and Dick's class was so small that I was elected amongst others to help out and supplement in our 5th year to be prefects for the dormitories. I guess it was my size that did it. I don't know.
Well, that's modeled after the English system of in higher education, and actually Harvard uses this, where in the fraternities where they have it's like integrating so that people know each other, and you get the wisdom of the older students passing it down to the younger ones. So that's kind of I think where the model came from. But yeah.
One of the fun things about being a dormitory prefect, the biggest challenge was finding out who was throwing the water bombs across toward each other in the bedrooms.
The memory of a dormitory prefect was Bob Walsh, who ended up and I must have been in 1st or 2nd class at that point, and a plane or a couple of planes came very close.
Oh, that's right.
And everybody got up and was looking around, and he just stayed in bed and yelled, "Relax, guys, they're ours."
I remember that. I remember those old steam radiators,
Yes.
One night, one was banging so loud, and I can't remember who the prefect was, but he came over and questioned me very seriously if I wasn't up banging on the pipes myself. I mean, those things were really nailing off that night. That's what I remember them.
I remember Dave Cleary in our class. It might have been a music class. Father Rose was in it. And he was kind of a tall guy, and he got his arm caught between the wall and the radiator, and he couldn't get it out, and he raised his hand. He wanted help to get his arm out, free of the radiator and the wall. So it was weird.
Hey, Bill, a curiosity question. Is our evening a 2-hour event or?
Yeah.
Well, I booked for 3 just in case it runs over. So
the tournament's on now.
The game is going to start soon.
That's what's driving this.
Yeah.
Kind way. It's a Catholic school, and Bing Crosby was a graduate of Gonzaga University. So.
All right, you want to call it quits then, guys?
I do.
But I don't want to call it off. You want it next time?
Yeah. First Monday's working out for everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
I was trying to do some sort of pre-registration only because when you have like 35 names and people are responding, it was getting difficult for me to keep track of who was coming and who wasn't. But I think what happened is that a lot of probably only about half the people attending tonight actually responded by that reservation form. So I'll give it another shot just to see. It really, I didn't want to make it seem like it was getting to be a burden, but it's in my mental state, as we can all attest to, it was getting pretty difficult to keep track of whether somebody said they were coming or weren't coming. I did hear from
We're ready to close.
I did hear from a couple of people. Jerry Stein said he wasn't able to make it. And I couldn't tell whether Jim Hannick was planning to come or participate or not. I just sort of left him off the list of the ones who were confirmed, and I sent them the notes. And
You
I know
snubbed him, huh? You snubbed him, huh?
yeah, and that was the other thing. There were some people that somehow, in my efforts to have a digital version of alumni lists, that I managed to leave off some people that had been kind of. So anyway, let's plan on the first Monday in May and see what happens in the meantime.
Okay.
If
Very
it's
good.
good.
I have a question to put on the topic, if you can, possibility of a August or September.
Oh, right, yeah.
We don't have to talk about tonight because it's, we'll
Right.
see how the pandemic looks as summer progresses, but
Right, yeah.
we would need to probably pick a location and a date and.
Why
Yeah,
not the
Norm-
seminary if they make that shelter?
Oh, that's a thought.
So if they allow you that. If they
Right,
allow
I'm
you.
already depressed based upon Dick Galant's statement that we aren't high school graduates. Now I got to go get a GED. You know, this,
How
I'm
about
just,
that?
you know, this, I'm, you know, I got.
I'm not sure what Dick
I
meant.
gotta start
I
drinking
guess
now, so. just-
Technically, we're not high school graduates. Dick?
I don't know,
That's
but
true.
that's
That's
kind of
true.
what I got out of Dick, and I'm just, you know, I gotta go drink. I'm sorry.
Well, I
gotta
still
go.
got to the University of Michigan, got in, so, you know.
I don't care, but I gotta go get a GED now.
But the
Thanks,
problem
Dick.
is, Dick,
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
on your
just
application
thanks a
to the
lot.
university,
Okay.
Hey, you know what?
Don't get overrun with this, Bill. I mean, Dick told me this 2-3 years ago, and it didn't affect my life, whatever life it was that I had anyway. So,
Well, my glass is empty now. I gotta go get more.
When we're dead, it won't make a difference.
I want to make the comment that if Dick is correct, each of us for the colleges we attended signed an admission form saying that everything on that form was correct. And we all said we
You
graduated.
perjured yourself.
So
You perjured yourself.
that's right. That gives the university the right to take away your degrees.
Good night, guys.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Right on. Thanks a lot.
okay.
See you next
Albert, let's
time.
connect later. I'll
Yep.
make an email.
Right. Okay. Good enough. I'm ending it now.
Okay, good.